What if I told you there was an anime so black that it got whipped with... It got whipped with several bans.
What I do?
An anime so wild that every week it aired, it faced cancellation.
What I do?
An anime so unique that it was written by an American comic book artist, animated by a Japanese anime studio, and voiced by Lil Wayne, Snoop Doggy Dogg, and Samuel Leroy Jackson. You already know those studio sessions were lit, fam. Well, that show exists and it's called The Boondocks. The show was created by Aaron Mcgruder, and his sick mind is responsible for Stink Mina,
that's right, now.
Uncle Ruckus, and the wild famous Aaron is a huge anime fan, and that led to the show's amazing art style, fight scenes, and overall vibe. But to properly understand what makes this the greatest black animated show of all time, we need to go into Aaron's past, when his love for anime started, his favorite anime, and why the Boondocks says so much. So let's start with the Boondocks' humble beginnings. Aaron Mcgruder was born in Chicago and grew up moving around a lot, and eventually started studying in the University of Maryland, where he graduated with a degree in African American Studies. So basically, he studied how to be a During this time, he began a webcomic in his university's newspaper called The Boondocks, which featured Riley and Huey, but their designs were vastly different and very rough. But within 3 years, the comic became such a hit that it was published in over 160 different newspapers throughout the country. After seeing so much success, his next move was obvious: turn the comic into a TV show. So he began pitching the animated TV show to Fox, who, after seeing how dark it was, told him to off. But Aaron kept moving forward and eventually made a deal with Sony Pictures, who then slated the show on Cartoon Network's late night program block Adult Swim because he wanted to make use of the N-word on TV. He stated, "I just want to be able to write the way people genuinely talk and feel. Using the word makes the show sincere." But the show's authenticity wasn't the only thing that made it special. The Boondocks was the most expensive show in Cartoon Network history. Every episode cost over $400,000 to make, and even more to market it, but that's because Aaron had a vision. Inspired by his favorite anime shows Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, Aaron wanted the show to look smooth, beautiful, and stylish. He wanted to stand out. Look, I love Western comedies like South Park and The Simpsons, but let's be honest, these shows are ugly as Mom, if this art style was a girldom, I'd smash.
Are you serious, my brother?
But with the lights off, you feel me? And then never tell a soul. So the show had its fight scenes done by Studio Madhouse, which made One Punch Man Season 1, Death Note, and Black Lagoon. So they know how to animate. But does it really count as anime? Metro Boomin called it his favorite anime, and if young Metro don't trust you,
well, you know the rest of that big one.
But some people didn't like the jokes the Boondocks made. Some people wanted it gone. The Boondocks is a lot like my favorite comedians who used comedy to talk about issues which were seen as controversial by most, namely Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, and the greatest to ever do it, Richard Pryor. And just like they were almost cancelled several times during their career, so was the Boondocks, like the BET parody episodes, which made BET threaten to sue them if they didn't shelf the episodes. The show said some things about the management that they did not like. Honestly though, doesn't threatening to sue someone over a joke mean that the joke is true? Aren't you just proving your guilt, G? Like if a hot reporter pulled up like, "Research, I heard you're a weirdo who likes feet." I'm not gonna take her to court. I'll just ask her to take off her shoes before she walks into the house so we can continue the conversation, fam. What did the show specifically say about BET?
You know, hablo English.
I'm not rolling the dice. They might sue me as well. They trolled the Chinese in the kickball episode.
Hey there, Chairman Mao.
And while we're on the topic of balls,
Pause.
Can y'all stop calling football soccer if I hear you call it soccer one more time? They made fun of Tyler Perry in the episode Pause by making the plot revolve around Tyler Perry casting Grandad to be in his film, but only because he wants Grandad's bum. Pause. But Perry, being the waste man he is, called the broadcasters and threatened to pull away from the company. So these episodes didn't air and were only available on the DVDs. There's also the Robert Kelly episode, which really pissed him off. The Martin... Oh my goodness. pissed him off, really? The Martin Luther King episode and the episode where they tried to kidnap Oprah. Yeah, Aaron, let's shit on two very powerful, very influential black billionaires. What's the worst that could happen? In 2014, the Boondocks dropped its final season, but it was later announced that Aaron Mcgruder wasn't working on it, and the reviews reflected that. The final season ended up being one of the weakest seasons of the show. The complex humor and satire that made the show so great was replaced by mediocre jokes and plotless storylines. That's what everyone else thinks. I don't care. I love all the seasons, and even then, as bad as people say the final season of the Boondocks is, it's not nearly as bad as Attack on Titan's ending. The Boondocks to me is a shoulder you can always lean on. Aaron Mcgruder wrote the show in such a way that it'll be timeless, and he succeeded. I watched the show for the first time when I was a kid. Back then we only had VHS and much later DVDs. Kenya never really had a golden age for movies, mostly because our government is too busy taxing the out of us for anyone to actually make movies, much less have anyone watch them in the cinema in an age where we've got Netflix. Whoa. Y'all have Netflix. Call me Jack Sparrow G because I just pirate everything. So the movies we loved back then were action movies, and most of all kung fu movies. Rambo, Commando, Drunken Master, Enter the Dragon, just anything with Bruce Lee, Sylvester Stallone, Jackie Chan, and Jet Li. Before Netflix, before YouTube, anything with Bruce Lee in it was just incredible. I remember I was at the movie shop trying to buy a new kung fu movie when the movie guy tells me about this black kung fu cartoon called The Boondocks. Yeah. Bro couldn't pronounce it. So I take it home and watched it, and I just remember not understanding a single thing, but still laughing my ass off. Mostly because of Riley saying that was enough to have me dying. My sense of humor hasn't really changed since then. Years passed and here I am. Once again, this show is timeless. I understand the jokes now, but I still watch this show every year. On the real, I never really share any problems I go through. I could be stressed out of my mind, punching my wall, but when I'm in public, stone face farm. You either have two options when you're stressed as a guy. Either you pick up the booze and swing at your wife, like my neighbor, or you pick up the booze and swing at your son, like my neighbor. Now, I prefer the son option. Whoa.
Why you pulling me? I'm right.
He's a man. He can take it. Kidding. If I ever get a son, I'm going for the milk. But personally, when I'm going through tough times, I turn to comedy. Mostly stand-up and occasionally the animated sitcoms. So I watch a lot of comedy as a result. When bad things happen, I prefer to laugh them off, and the Boondocks has been with me through thick and thin. No matter how down I feel, I know I can always put on an episode of this show and watch Grandad, Riley, and Huey go through hell only to come out laughing at the end. That's what I meant by a shoulder you can always lean on, because no matter how bad it gets, it will always be there with open arms waiting for you.